Okay, folks, this is part of the show where we deep dive. We relive all of the pay-per-views, the matches, and storylines that shaped our childhood. This week, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to relive the career and the times of Brian Pillman as the anniversary of his untimely death is just around the corner.
Is it? Now, I gotta tell you, Aaron, and this is G. Patrick Condon, by the way, Newfoundland's favorite media personality. Where's my applause button? Anyways, Aaron, this was my idea. We have been, thank you. Yes, thank you. My hands are up. It wasn't me. My hands were up. Somebody else is applauding. It was my idea to do this Pillman thing. I didn't realize that it had been so apt and timely, but the last couple of episodes we did have been around the lead up to this legendary man's untimely passing away. So that's all me.
Get yourself another hand of applause there. There you go.
We've already done it. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Very good. And people might ask, well, why stick around and listen to this? Well, unlike half of the AEW roster, I can actually tell a story. But besides that...
What the hell is that? What?
What do you mean, what?
I can't believe the shade. I mean, just the strays that are coming out from left field. And look, I'm glad that you brought that up. I don't want to derail this so much so quickly, but I heard a pretty interesting quote this week where I think it was Mansoor said that he views WWE as like a Michael Bay movie and AEW as like a David Lynch movie. What do you think about that comparison?
Who's David Lynch?
All right. Anyways, go on. Can we get a boo? There's no point. He's not gonna.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So stick around. Hear a good story. You can learn lots of behind the scenes stuff. Hear lots of stories that you may or may not have known. And of course, you can win free merch like rolling papers and t-shirts. So stick around and watch the video.
Subtle. You took that note before we went. Very good, man. Nice. You're no slouch as a host. You're able to work in the tapestry of all the things that you are meant to do in terms of engaging the audience and retaining the audience. So, Aaron, in celebration, in proof of what we do here, please start us off with the story of Brian Pillman.
All right, Brian Pillman. You know, he's someone that we've talked about a little bit over like the past year and a half of the podcast, and as you mentioned, somewhat more recently, but we never actually got into depth about him. So I'm really excited that we have a chance to go through his career because it's really, really interesting. But yeah, at the beginning of all things, when he was born, he had a thing called polyps in his throat. And by the time he was just a little boy, he had 31 surgeries. I think by the time he was 5 years old, he had 31 surgeries on his throat.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I know. They would have to scrape his vocal cords and try to get the stuff out from the roots. And
that's how I guess he got his trademark raspy voice.
Exactly. Yeah. But he would end up graduating high school, and he would be playing some football. He would actually go and play football for his hometown Cincinnati Bengals in 1984. we got an applause there for we must have a Bengals fan here in the audience, do we?
I guess so, or just his Brian Pillman's ability to just achieve, I guess, is what one person is applauding for.
Okay. There we go.
Can we bring up that Brian Pillman picture that we just saw a moment ago? Is that possible? And because I mean, it just struck me. I think the theme of this episode is going to be that Brian Pillman was like the Kurt Cobain of pro wrestling for his given time and place. That's my mission statement to you.
I can see that. They have, besides the obvious facial features that they actually look like, but just the impact of the business that they were in, and I like that comparison. That's really good. That's really good. And
That's
both
what we'll
of
call
them,
this episode. We'll work in Kurt Cobain's name. Anyways, please, Aaron. Last we left off, our man is playing for the Cincinnati Bengals.
yes, and unfortunately for him, he would end up playing for the Calgary Stampeders in the CFL in 1986. Stampeders suck.
Yeah, to this day. I mean, you are in Alberta, where obviously the CFL is way bigger a deal there than it is here. Do you follow? I know you're a football guy too.
Yes.
Do the Stampeders still suck, and you are not a fan of them?
Technically, they don't suck. They always make the playoffs, but just it's just that rivalry. I'm an Eskimo fan. Well, I guess you got to call them Elks now, but
Right.
that Edmonton and Calgary rivalry is for real, and definitely on the Edmonton side. But the good thing that came from him playing football in Calgary was that he got to go wrestle and train at the Dungeon with Stu Hart, and he would join Bruce Hart as a tag team known as Bad Company.
Yeah, that's a good name. And I mean, Bruce Hart decided on a persona really early in his life, and he's still living that to this day. That is the same Bruce Hart that you would get right now in that photo in 2024. Amazing,
right? And as smart as Pillman was, even in his earlier days, he got his girlfriend at the time to portray his sister in order to get him over as a babyface. He would, he got his girlfriend to portray his sister. They would sit at ringside, and he would get the wrestlers to taunt her, and he would come rescue her. So he would seem like the good white
hero.
The big hero. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, nice, cool.
After a stint in New Japan, Pillman would go back to the States in '89 and wrestle for WCW. He would be known as Flying Brian because of his high-risk maneuvers that you would normally only see in Mexico with Lucha Libre. Between '89 and '91, he would feud with Barry Windham, Brad Armstrong, Scotty Flamingo, and more. Scotty Flamingo, of course, would go on to be known as Raven. In February 1990, a match with Ric Flair on WCW Saturday Night holds the record for the highest rating that show has ever drawn. His match with Jushin Thunder Liger at Super Bowl II is seen as one of the great pay-per-view matches of its era. Meltzer gave it 4.75 stars.
Wow, almost a 5. Almost a 5 from the Melts.
So nice. Close.
How about yourself? What would you give that match on the Bish scale?
It's been a while since I've watched it in its entirety, honestly. I did watch highlights of it the other night. It looks great. It looks crisp. It looks amazing. But I don't know. I haven't seen it in its entirety. I can't give it a 5, probably just at a memory, because I don't think there's any titles on the line. It's just a straight up match. Maybe if there's a title on the line, you get that 5. But I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. There you go.
In '92, Pillman would turn heel, frustrated by Brad Armstrong's knee injury and vacating the WCW World Light Heavyweight title, which he was scheduled to wrestle Armstrong for at Clash of the Champions.
Looking like a Kurt Hennig there, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what I like to contribute to the show every week. Is who do people look like?
All right.
There you go.
Pillman would go on a tag team title hunt by forming a tag team with stunning Steve Austin, known as the Hollywood Blondes.
Now, the Hollywood Blondes are one of the earliest memories I have of WCW. I remember being at a hall in Gander for something or other, and it was on TBS at the time. And that was their little taunt, right? The reeling the camera kind of thing. And that was when I realized that this was not WWF. I had no idea that there was other wrestling. But Pillman, more so even than Austin, had such a good look. And the Hollywood Blondes were awesome heel tag team. In the shenanigans they would get in, lots of charisma.
So much charisma. But it's crazy because when the idea of the Hollywood Blondes was originally pitched to Steve Austin, he resisted it. Austin had previously been slated for a possible singles push, and he saw that being slotted into a tag team would be a step down. But eventually, of course, he relented, and the Blondes were formed, and their chemistry was instant, and they became best friends outside of the ring as well. they would quickly dethrone Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas for the tag team championships. And in fact, the Blondes were so popular at this time that they were booked to be Ric Flair's opponents in his return match back to the promotion. This is the first time Flair had been in WCW in years after his WWF stint. The Blondes would actually mock Flair and Arn Anderson.
They would do the dress up routine.
Yes, they would do the dress up routine. Flair, of course, had his interview show called "A Flair for the Gold," so they had a show ced "A Flair for the Old."
Wait! I was gonna guess that.
No.
You can see Austin in the background there on that bottom photo doing the taunt.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. All right. Okay, Aaron, you got me so far. So far, this is informative.
It is informative. And it's fun.
I think I'm going to stick around watching this if I've just come across this on YouTube. And for those that stick around, I mean, we get that engagement time up. We get that retention time up we increase it to another minute or so. I think that we should do a free giveaway, but we'll tell the people how at the end.
Sounds good. All right.
I got this.
You're a good man. They would fight. Oh, there we go. Got the applause. There we go.
Thank you.
People are loving this. All right. So, to the shock of many, the Clash of the Champions drew its lowest TV ratings in history, only a 2.6. But despite the fact that the main event drew the highest ratings of any match on the show, a scapegoat was needed for the low overall numbers. Jim Cornette said on an episode of the Dark Side of the Ring that the Blondes were given the blame and they were disbanded shortly thereafter.
Wow. Hold on a second now. So they were in the main event. The main event did well. But the rest of the show didn't do well. And so they immediately broke up the tag team as a result.
Correct. That's WCW for you.
Yeah, who's that? Is that Jim Herd? No,
probably Jim Herd. I'm thinking probably, it is probably Jim Herd era, 1993, 94. It's gotta be Jim Herd. Yeah. But yeah, they would separate and they would have a feud. But around this time in real life, Brian would marry his first and only wife, Melanie. At the same time, though, he was in a bitter custody dispute over his daughter, Brittany. And as it went on, Brittany's mother, Rochelle, disappeared. Fearing he himself would be viewed as a suspect, Brian went into the worst parts of Cincinnati in a frantic search, only to find himself arrested by the local police who thought they saw him swallow a pill. Brian plea bargained down to drunk driving, and Rochelle was found safe weeks later.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy shit.
That's a whole lot of weird circumstances. Was there any repercussions for him getting arrested like that? Like, was his spot... I guess he didn't have much of a spot at the time.
Wasn't so much his spot as his mental state. Because after the mom lost the battle of custody for the child, she wanted to die via suicide, and to do so while on the phone with Brian as an act of revenge. Unable to contact him, she died while talking to her mother instead.
Oh, she actually went through with it?
She did.
Oh.
She did.
Wow. I mean, who amongst us haven't had a lady on the phone threatening to end it all if you took away your relationship from them? But I've never had anybody go through with it. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
So what happened to the sister? The daughter, sorry.
The daughter. She stayed with Melanie and Brian in that marriage.
Nice. And also, look, if anybody out there is thinking of self-harm or anything like that, it's no joke. And there's a hotline, I'm sure, that you can call where somebody's waiting to talk you through it. It's not the end of the world. Don't go black like the screen behind me. Come back on. Stay inside. There's always another reason to get up in the morning.
That's beautiful, Pat.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
I wouldn't have hit the applause button at that.
Probably bad timing.
All right.
Oh,
This is getting out of control.
This is getting out of control, folks. If you're still watching, God bless you.
Oh, they are, because I just did the retention thing. It's good.
In 1994, Pillman would venture into Extreme Championship Wrestling for the first time as part of a talent exchange between ECW and WCW. Pillman made his return to WCW as a face, but slowly progressed into a tweener. In September of 95, Pillman formed a tag team with Arn Anderson and began feuding with Ric Flair. Pillman wrestled the first match on the inaugural episode of WCW Monday Nitro, defeating Jushin Thunder Liger in a Super Brawl rematch.
Nice. What'd that get?
I don't know what the match rating is, but fans,
I don't know!
Perfect, there you go. If you do know the match rating, leave it in the comments.
Nice. First person to leave a comment with the accurate rating for that match, pack of papers.
Nice. And I'm telling you, folks, those pack of papers, those rolling papers, they don't run. Best. They burn amazing. They so
don't run.
They don't run.
That's right. Just like the BWF podcast itself. We don't run, and our papers don't run.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you.
After costing Flair a match to Arn Anderson at Fall Brawl, Flair recruited the help of Sting to team up against Pillman and Anderson at Halloween Havoc. Pillman and Anderson attacked Flair before the match, forcing Sting to come out alone.
Yes, I remember this.
It's so good.
This was when Sting. This was around the time that everybody was starting to catch on to Sting being a little naive, really, a little gullible.
Yes, gullible Sting era for sure, and one of the greatest heel turns of all time. As we see here, when Sting needed the tag the most, Flair came out at the last minute with a bandage on his head, tagged Sting, and immediately turn around and attacked him. Immediately turn on him.
Yes.
Yeah. Removing the fake bandage from his head.
And then they both, him and his lifelong best friend Arn Anderson just put the boots to this goofy Sting.
Like an idiot. Yeah. These actions signaled the reuniting of the Four Horsemen, and this incarnation was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Brian Pillman, and the one we shall remain nameless.
Yes. Well, okay, so, I mean, my God, if you were to show somebody that picture and say, who out of these guys are going to be alive in 2024, I'd say most of those people would lose that bet.
You wouldn't say Flair, yeah. Sure.
I mean,
Arn Anderson's still alive too, but
yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, Arn Anderson looks like he's pushing 50 there. Yeah, I think he was probably 28.
He was probably right there. He's probably in his late 30s, man. Because when the Horsemen first formed, he was still in his late 20s. So he's probably in his late 30s there. Yeah, honestly.
I kind of like the idea of aging like he did. He got it all out of the way, and now if you look at him, and he's I don't know what he is now in his 70s, not that bad.
Not that bad compared to Flair. No, Flair looks like a corpse.
And Flair's wife just announced that she's separating from him.
His fifth divorce.
For real. I think that was yesterday or something.
Legit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyway. At this time, Brian Pillman, he was approaching his mid-30s himself. Yeah, that's crazy. He's the same age almost as Arn Anderson. Oh, wow. My God. Anyway, he was low on the card, physically hurting, and with his contract coming up soon, Pillman devised a plan. He would create a character that was seen as crazy and unpredictable, who would even fool the wrestlers and the media, that would make him the hottest free agent in wrestling. The loose cannon was born. Brian studied books and films about con artists and also changed his look.
Yeah. So was he called the loose cannon even in WCW?
No, I think the loose cannon came a little bit later. If I'm wrong, folks, please leave it in the comments. You'll get a pack of papers.
Leave a comment in the comments. Leave a comment on the comments there that you left previously. People who leave the most comments, there's more chances to win. Aaron, with Brian Pillman going crazy like that and working the boys, do you ever think that that's a good idea to try and work the boys, as they call it, fool them as to what your what's real and what's not.
Absolutely. As people say, you're not there to make friends. You're there to make money. They're not your friends. Screw them. If you can do something that's going to further your career and get you a little bit of more coin in the bank, you do it. That's my take. I like it.
Okay.
All right. Now, while he was in the Four Horsemen, his allies, especially Arn Anderson, were very weary of his behavior and tried in vain to keep him in check. Almost all of the time, Pillman could be seen wearing leather vests, sunglasses, jewelry, graphic T-shirts with skulls, monsters, and other sayings on them.
Yeah. Cool. You look cool, man.
You look cool.
From
He did look
Flying
cool.
Brian and looking pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Convincing WCW head Eric Bischoff that they needed to fool everybody, the two worked together along with Booker Kevin Sullivan. Pillman would act wild and erratic both on air and behind the scenes, and Bischoff and Sullivan would act like they were legitimately mad. In a match with Eddie Guerrero on the 23rd edition of Clash of the Champions, Pillman grabbed commentator Bobby Heenan by the collar, causing Heenan, who had a history of neck problems, to scream at, "What the f*** are you doing?" So we got to beep that out. Heenan, legit, he did not know that Pillman was going to grab him, and he thought that it was a fan grabbing him from behind, and he freaked out.
Yeah, apparently Heenan was really embarrassed about his reaction to that. He thought that it was unprofessional for himself to react like that.
But I mean, you can't blame the guy, right? You can't, I don't know.
No. Whose side do you take in that then, Aaron? Do you take Arn? Do you take Brian Pillman's side, who's just working the boys, who you just said that's what you got to do? Or do you take legendary play-by-play color manager Bobby Heenan with his neck injury? Who's in the right?
He didn't said himself. He should have been more professional, so it's all good. It should have been Pillman. Pillman's in the right.
Okay, there you go.
Let's see. Wrestling newsletters. They were getting planted information that Pillman was on thin ice with the promotion, and even the wrestlers were convinced. Kevin Sullivan revealed that Pillman went as far to play so crazy that he proposed chaining himself to the goalposts during a Super Bowl, but his lawyers talked him out of that.
Yeah, I don't know how that would do it. Well, I guess, what he should have done was go looking for his daughter in the mean parts of Cincinnati and then pretend like he was taking a pill and then get arrested for
drunk driving
or what have you, and make the news like that.
There you go. Pillman would go on to create one of the most famous worked shoot angles of all time. The story around Pillman's new persona built to a match with Kevin Sullivan at Super Brawl. In the build-up, Sullivan broke a pencil during a promo, a sly insider reference that he was the booker. The match.
Explain that insider reference.
The booker, he was writing the shows. He was writing the storylines. Kevin Sullivan was the main storyline creator backstage. The match at Super Brawl was supposed to be a respect strap match, the two men tied together, only ending when one said, "I respect you," to the other. But on the night of the show, despite the backstage format sheet listing the match as being planned for 12 minutes, Pillman, just a minute and a half in, said, "I respect you, Booker man," and voluntarily left the ring, flipping off the audience as he left.
Yes, and there was mass confusion, and I believe it resulted in Arn Anderson coming out wearing, he was clearly in streetwear. He was wearing cargo shorts, I think, and a salmon colored shirt, and he wrestled impromptu match with Kevin Sullivan right then and there.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Pillman and Bischoff, they would get into a shouting match before Brian left the building. And as you said, they did the Sullivan and Arn Anderson match. The whole thing had, in fact, been planned between Pillman, Bischoff, and Sullivan, but the talent who witnessed it, including Arn, had been kept out of the loop. Many believed they'd just seen the loose cannon just go into business for himself.
So I don't know who this benefits, though. Them for them not to tell Arn. So Arn went out there to try and save the show without knowing that even Kevin Sullivan, who he was going to go and wrestle, had just worked everybody. Like what? I don't see the upside of it. Like you couldn't let in Arn, or like what? How does this work shoot benefit anybody? It's cool. I'm not saying it's not cool, Aaron. Don't put words in my mouth.
Oh, I'm not. I would never do such a thing. Never.
All right.
Never.
It is cool. I just don't know the logic behind it, like what the greater goal is. And then to go back and to, I guess it gets over his character. Anyway, sorry. I digress.
That's okay. I would say if I was a booker with Bischoff, the unpredictability of the character would make people want to tune into the show. And in Brian Pillman's mind, he's trying to get himself to be a free agent. So he's, trying to get fired. So kill two birds with one stone. But I digress. Pillman's plan to con the world would even extend to Bischoff himself. And the two were doing an angle where Bischoff had fired Pillman. And Pillman convinced Bischoff that to really make everyone think that it was real, WCW's legal team needed to write a legitimate release for Pillman. Bischoff agreed, and even though Brian's contract was set to expire in about a month anyway, Pillman was now free to negotiate with both WCW and the WWF. So even as this angle with WCW was ongoing, he was no longer under the control of the company. This would actually backfire on Bischoff. Pillman would go down to ECW and make some appearances down there, acting as if he was truly on the outs with World Championship Wrestling, and he would run down the management. I do believe he would call Bischoff a gopher and a piece of shit and all that stuff, but one of his most memorable segments would be him wrestling a giant pencil, as we can see here.
There you go. As established earlier, a reference to, is that still Kevin Sullivan that he's burning on that? Yeah. The real shame in all this is that is the trust that was broken. That Eric Bischoff never really ever trusted anybody ever again in the wrestling business. And someday we should look at decisions that he made as a direct result of being fooled by his buddy Brian when they were supposed to be. It was supposed to be the two of them against the world.
Yes. Let's do that. In the same interview as Pillman calling Bischoff a piece of shit, he also threatened to whip out his schlong and urinate in the ring. Pillman was confronted by ECW owner Todd Gordon and Booker Paul Heyman and Shane Douglas, who had removed him. The security guards who were trying to take him away as well, they're dragging Pillman, but he would attack a plant sitting in the audience with a fork that he produced in his boot. Great stuff.
Nice. Yes. Classic.
The loose cannon character had accomplished its goal of making Pillman a hot free agent. He had an offer from WCW for $425,000 a year for 3 years, and he had an offer from the WWF for somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000 a year. But then came a tragedy as he crashed his newly purchased Humvee. The accident sent Pillman through the roof, high into the air. Bones in his face were so badly broken that he was unrecognizable. His ankle was destroyed to the point where his bone was needed from his hip to reconstruct it. Sad. Brian had always wanted to...
I mean, some people would say that maybe that was him getting his, just desserts after being so dishonest and untrustworthy towards people that put a lot of faith in him. What say you? Do you think that he deserved that?
Nobody deserves that, Mr. Condon, I don't think. What do you think?
Hey, I'm the one asking the questions around here, okay? I set you up and you answer them.
Fair enough.
All right, so nobody deserves to get into a car accident and have their legs crushed. Look, I didn't think it was going to take this. It was going to be this quickly for somebody else to take over the sound effects here.
It's
So I
pretty
gotta
good.
say, I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's pretty good, pretty smooth.
Right,
but to continue on with the tragedy, Pillman always wanted to stay in WCW over the WWF, but because he had the accident and the WWF were offering more money, the money was guaranteed. And also WCW, with their contract, it gave them the chance to cut Bryan every 90 days. So with doctors telling him he may never be able to run again, let alone wrestle, Pillman wanted the job security. He went with the WWF deal. And it's a big thing. It's a big moment because it's the first ever guaranteed contract that Vince McMahon ever handed out. And
there's so much different reports about who got that. For some reason, they gave Kevin Nash that kind of credit, but it's not true. It was Brian Pillman.
Well, Nash was WCW's first guaranteed contract. This is Vince's first guaranteed contract that he handed out. So it can both be true.
I mean, you're being kind of diplomatic there. I think when they inducted the guy into the Hall of Fame, they said that his contribution to the wrestling industry was guaranteed. And even if they were just talking about the WCW part, that happened after the Pillman thing, right?
Nope, before.
All right, cut that. Continue.
They would announce Pillman signing via press conference.
I said cut it. Go ahead.
But Pillman would return to the ring far too soon. He was eager to prove his worth to the WWF. Appearing on TV for them in non-wrestling segments, Pillman acted as a commentator and interviewer at one point while getting intravenous antibiotics for a severe infection. Pillman went as far as to unhook himself from the IV, traveled to do the event, and then hooked himself back up when he got home. Eventually, doctors informed him that due to his schedule causing him to put weight on his healing ankle when he shouldn't have, it was not healing properly and it would have to be rebroken. Pillman's in-ring debut was delayed further.
Look, I mean, that didn't really work out. I don't think his unhooking himself from the IVs and traveling on planes and stuff, probably not the right thing to do.
No, absolutely not. Because when he finally did arrive, or when he finally could wrestle in WWF, he was a shell of his former self. He couldn't do any high-flying stuff. He was just punch kick, basically, and he had to do a bunch of bells and whistles and shortcuts to try to entertain the fans in his matches.
But, I mean, he had a lot of charisma and his character work was good. That he would have been able to, he didn't need to be flying Brian Pillman. And a guy like Hulk Hogan would tell you, you never need anything more than a punch and a kick.
That's right. That's right. One of the main things that we take away from his early WWF run is when he was attacked by Steve Austin. Earlier on, he formed a little alliance with Austin, them being former tag team partners and stuff like that. But when he started admiring Bret Hart, Austin's rival, Austin took exception, beat the crap out of him in the middle of the ring, and he put his ankle in the steel chair here and jumped on it. This is, to this day, known as Pillmanizing.
That's right. Still to this day, they will still call it that. And brutal looking move. It looks great. If you think about it, it all makes sense, obviously, but the look of it is classic and great stuff.
It really is. And he legit had to go for surgery just 2 or 3 days later. So when he showed up on Raw the next week in a cast, that was for real.
Nice. Or was it? You never know with this guy.
Right. But all of this, of course, would lead to the Pillman's Got a Gun angle. Probably the most famous Pillman segment of all time.
That's right. And we've spoken a lot here about many segments that could be his most famous. But this is a classic Attitude Era, on the cusp, arguably the kickstart of it. You could say it's the first Attitude Era moment or right before. The gun. Tell us a little bit about that.
Austin decided to take matters into his own hands and visit Pillman at his home. WWF interviewer Kevin Kelly sat at Pillman's house with a camera crew and the Pillman family, while Pillman's friends surrounded the house to protect him. Austin was attacked by Pillman's friends as soon as he arrived, but quickly subdued them. He then proceeded to break into Pillman's home. Pillman responded by producing the same 9mm pistol that he had displayed earlier, and he pointed it at Austin while Kelly and Pillman's wife, Melanie, screamed for help.
That's right. And then it cut to static and whatever. The WWF got in trouble, I think, with the USA Network.
Did they ever? Pillman let an F-bomb slip.
Wow.
On live television. So get this. This is one of the crazy things I wanted to bring up about this whole segment. This segment was actually taped live while the rest of the show was taped pre-recorded.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And Pillman let the F-bomb slip on live TV.
Right, yeah.
And they got in trouble. USA actually threatened to kick Raw off the air, so they had to do a lot of apologizing.
Yeah, and a lot of wrestling fans, parents obviously too, to this day, don't think that it was good for them to introduce a gun into wrestling.
And this is going to be even worse. There's actually more to the story. So this is the second draft that Vince had written up that USA approved. There was an original draft that USA did not approve. And
so USA approved it. So what, they were only upset about the F-bomb then?
The F-bomb and the outrage it caused from the fans and parents afterwards. The ratings were really good. They almost beat Nitro for the first time in a long time. But right after, the ratings crashed. People did not tune back in, and it was just an onslaught of parents calling. But the original version actually had Melanie, Pillman's wife, taking a bump or a fall of some sort. Now, there's not too many details about the nature of the bump or how exactly it would go down, but Austin's intrusion into the house would have led to the spot where she bumped, and then Pillman would have fired 2 shots with the gun on camera before the feed cut. And USA Network said, no way, that's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think that it needed it. It's interesting though. And it's not even really the first time. I was just thinking now, it's not really even the first time that a gun was used in a WWF segment, because there's that infamous segment from when Vince visits Dr. D, David Schultz. Have you ever seen that? And
I don't think so. Oh, I do. Yes, I do know what you're talking about. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
And accidentally goes off and
he calls him a stupid idiot. It's like, you stupid idiot. Yeah. Okay.
It's good stuff.
And before we all blame Russo for all this was Bruce Pritchard's idea.
Yeah, because Bruce was there on the scene. He was the guy that produced that segment for them too. Yeah.
It was him and Kevin Kelly. Yeah. Unfortunately, after this, though, Pillman's career would pretty much stall. He found delight in joining the Hart Foundation. He would join Bret Hart and Owen and the rest of the boys and become the Hart Foundation. He was the only member that was not related to Bret by blood. But yeah, the Canadian Stampede pay-per-view, he said that match, that was the high point of his career. Nothing to do with Flair or Sting or Jushin Thunder Liger or anything like that. Nothing compared to that night in Calgary. So I'm glad that Pillman had that before it was his time to go. But over the last few months, he would be feuding with Goldust. Do you remember the Triple X files with Marlena? And he would also feud with Mick Foley before passing away of an undetected heart disorder at the age of 35, the day before the Bad Blood pay-per-view.
That's right, which we covered recently. Mm-hmm. So now was it announced at the show that he passed away that day?
It was announced on air. I don't know if they did it in the crowd or not. I don't know if they had Fink come out and say something or not. I don't know, but it was announced on the air that he passed away.
It's wild, I guess, how much things have changed, because There's the whole debate over whether or not they should have canceled the show with what happened with Owen, which, if you look at it from today's point of view, yes. There's no way that it should have continued. But you almost wonder if even something like this would have warranted the card not happening, or it not being mentioned on the show or something like that. Like it's so raw for somebody to have died earlier that day and then work it into the broadcast. You'd either want to get rid of the broadcast, like the show completely, or avoid it. But they did not. And then they would almost work it into like a storyline, or not a storyline, but it was a ratings grab the next day on Raw.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. It didn't seem like they were paying tribute at all. It just seemed like a ratings grab. You're absolutely right.
Because they were, and then this is less than or about 24 hours from removal from his death, but they were promoting, that they're going to talk to his
wife,
his widow.
Yeah, his widow. Sorry, yeah. You could tell she's white as a ghost. She's obviously going through it, and they just, it's disgusting. Vince, my goodness.
But I mean, at the time, and I don't know, we're watching this, we are like teenagers or whatever, but it never occurred to me how distasteful this approach is. And it was also a whole lot of them distancing themselves for being responsible for his death, I think, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That seems to be the major priority.
I don't even think they've mentioned the man on TV since.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame or anything, hey?
No. Not at all. And it's just, when you think about it, it's crazy because you mentioned it earlier. His promo work, his charisma was so good. His character work was so good. It's just a shame that he passed away right before the Attitude Era really took off, because just imagine the segments he could have had with Stone Cold when Austin was champion and stuff like that. I mean, it could have been something special. So it's a damn shame. But yeah, Pillman, he was great. Some great matches. Go back on YouTube and watch the match with Liger, stuff with Flair. Good stuff. Rest in peace, Brian Pillman.
Okay, I don't want to end it like that. No. Hold on. We don't need to do a solemn rest in peace sort of thing. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this could be shown to have some positive impact in it, such as I think that a lot of the way that Brian was working people and blurring the lines is something that a lot of wrestlers picked up on. And now, of course, his kid, Brian Pillman Jr., who is now in NXT, is Lexus King. He's continuing on, and seems to be going in the right direction. So, the Pillman name lives on, and I think that based on how popular or how long Lexus King lasts, we might even see Brian Pillman in a Hall of Fame ceremony, in the next couple of years, which would be great, because I think that his impact, for as short as it is another way that it's kind of like Kurt Cobain, is that like he died too soon, but it makes his body of work that much more stronger and less of an opportunity to be kind of diluted by him fading away, sort of thing.
Well said, Mr. Condon.
Thank you. And if you've made it this far into the video, don't forget, subscribe. Go to our Patreon and leave a comment down in the comment section saying, when do you think Brian Pillman will go into the Hall of Fame? Closest to the right answer will get a pack of BWF papers. That's right. When Brian Pillman goes in to the Hall of Fame, we will send you a pack of papers, depending on how close you are to the right year.
But in the meantime, if you do leave a comment, you will be entered into a draw to win a T-shirt. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna throw it on to that's it for this.
We're done.
Chronicles. Bye bye.